Week is Connie Burton, the older sister of the great Cliff Burton. And for this episode, we've got a special guest, and that is Jake Masonary of Them Evils, man. How you doing tonight?
Dude, I am doing great. You know, sipping some beers, enjoying the sunlight, trying to stay sane through all this.
Nice. Are you out in Vegas?
I am actually in Los Angeles right now.
Nice. So
yeah.
You're locked down? Are you locked down in Los Angeles?
To a certain extent. I hit the beach today, but, you know, at a respectable distance to other people.
You're not in You're not in one of those photos of like, look, everybody at the beach just having fun within 6 feet of each other. You know, those are the worst photos right now.
Dude, it's a horrible time to be from Southern California right now because everyone's just blowing it down here.
It's just like beach shaming all over the place.
100%.
Yeah, you got like people from like Minnesota just like, look at them, they're having fun.
Yeah. Dude, like they're calling California the Florida, or Orange County the Florida of California, which isn't the best rep right now, I guess, but whatever.
Well, I mean, the one thing that you guys can't do, and that's right now, is hang out in media tents at big festivals. That's where I see you guys every year. So, I mean, what have you been doing during this lockdown, this pandemic?
Well, I mean, right now we just been writing, dude. We were supposed to do a tour with the Pretty Reckless back in May. That obviously didn't happen, which is obviously a huge bummer because that was their first tour back in about 3 years. So right now, man, I mean, we're sitting on about, 6 or 7 new songs. And then we just went back into the studio last week and wrote a new one and tracked that. We're just trying to write and stay productive, man. We just dropped a new single about a month ago called Where You Gonna Crash Tonight. And dude, it's just, we're trying to, adapt to the curve like every artist is right now, of trying to stay sane and trying to stay relevant through all of this because, as as someone who's in the music industry, it's like you got to just stay relevant. So when you're not touring and stuff, it's a lot harder to do than you'd think. So
absolutely.
We're just trying to stay creative and try to stay relevant is all we can really do, and not drink too much beer. But
right. The one of the reasons I had you on is because I posted about Cliff Burton the other day on Facebook. You reached out and you're like, dude, Cliff. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I get it. And, one thing looking at you, it's kind of funny. I think if CAA was casting a movie about Cliff Burton, I think they could cast you as the role of Cliff.
Dude, that would honestly be like, dude, I've gotten that compliment. Like, to me, I take that as like the biggest fucking compliment. But like people have told me like after shows, they'll be like, who you remind me of is Cliff Burton. And I'm like, dude, that is just the ultimate, compliment to me. Cause like we have the same birthday, which is the coolest thing.
That's crazy.
But, no, when I was in fifth or sixth grade, my neighbor was like the one who got me into music. He's like, hey, I got a guitar for Christmas. You should get a bass for Christmas and we'll start a band. And I had no idea what a bass was, but I asked my parents to get me one. And then when they did, my neighbor burned me a copy of Kill 'Em All by Metallica. And after hearing like Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, it was just like, holy shit, like who is this bass player, dude? And so I Googled Cliff Burton and, I saw the live in, I think it's 81 that they do where Cliff does that crazy bass solo right before For Whom the Bell Tolls. It's like that outdoor festival. And I saw that. And then I I just dove down a rabbit hole, man, and like saw a picture of his tombstone. And it was like February 10th is his birthday. And I was like, no way. That was like my sign, man, that I'm supposed to be playing bass is the coolest thing.
Now, the crazy thing, I think you just showed your age in there, is the fact that you Googled Cliff Burton to see who it was.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was like 15 years ago, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think around 91 is when I first really got into Metallica. Like I'd had a friend play me Injustice for All. It just didn't click. I was like 10 or 11. And then Black Album comes out, Enter Sandman, Sad But True. All that stuff just goes on. And then I basically went one day from like Kiss and all that stuff to just all I listened to was Metallica. And I bought a bass. And I think the first song I ever played from start to finish was For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you just go down that rabbit hole, and then somewhere around there, Cliff 'Em All comes out on VHS, and he's just it's just a crazy thing, man, to know that he did all of that and died at 24. That's insane.
Dude, I know. I think about, like, I'm 27 now, and I think about, like, what I've accomplished as a musician and where I'm at as a player, and it's just like, because I mean, I think about that all the time, especially being 27 now. I think about, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, all those people, Kurt Cobain, all those people who died at 27. And I think, wow, like they accomplished all that by the age of 27. But then when I think about Cliff Burton, it's like, holy shit, man, he did all that by 24. So where I was at 3 years ago, just being some idiot playing local shows or something, it's mind blowing. I mean, obviously it was a different time, but the way he was as a player, dude, it's just insane. It's cool to like, I go back and like always watch like videos of like Dave Mustaine talking about, him starting off and playing with Cliff. Like I just watched this interview with, Dave Mustaine was talking about, or he was on some Sirius XM show, and he was talking about how, the riff of Four Horsemen or Mechanics, when him and Cliff wrote it, it was like the dun, 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 that like bridge riff. He was talking about how he's like, go back and listen to Sweet Home Alabama. We totally ripped that riff off. And he's just like talking about stories with him and Cliff. And I don't know. It's such a cool thing,
That's the one thing about Metallica to me is the fact that, they start the band in 81 and then they put out Kill 'Em All in 83. 84 is Ride the Lightning. 86, Master of Puppets. Like bands don't do that. You don't just all of a sudden start a band when you're 18 and then by the time you're 24 put out, what is hailed as the most classic album in the genre by the time of the band's been around for 5 years.
Dude, that's why like forever they will be my favorite band. They're the one who got me into music, man. But like, dude, it's unheard of now. You know what I mean? I mean, and also music is under such a bigger microscope now, and like everyone's overanalyzing every song of every album, so it makes it a lot harder for artists, I feel like, to produce consistently good music like that. But at the same time, like back then, dude, they were not, doing it to gain success or get radio play. Like they were just a bunch of long-haired dudes drinking beer, writing heavy music, which I think is what is getting lost nowadays, Yeah.
There were so many things they did that bucked the trend at the time. I mean, obviously they didn't put out a video until 88, 89, with one.
Yeah.
And for being such a gigantic band, I mean, they 86 they opened for Ozzy, and I don't think they've opened for anyone since then. It's and to it, that would be like a band now coming out and not putting their music on YouTube and Spotify, and still becoming the biggest band ever.
Yeah, doing one opening tour for arguably one of the biggest artists of all time, and then never opening for anyone else after that. Like crazy, man. They're unparalleled to me, and they will always be my number one. Like I go back and watch like the early videos from like some of them are on like Cliff 'Em All when Cliff's rocking like before he had his signature bass he had when he was rocking like the Rickenbacker, dude. Mm-hmm. It's just so sick.
Oh yeah.
Like it's
anytime I see one of those Rickenbackers at a store, I'm just like, pick it up, and you'll play a little on it. And they actually kind of play like shit. But
dude, I had one for a while, and like they weren't my vibe, man. They're very uncomfortable for me. I don't know how he could rip around. Like, I mean, he could also bend bass strings like no one could ever bend bass strings. So who knows how he was able to do it all. But yeah, they weren't comfortable for me at all.
Yeah, if you watch, you talked about the Day on the Green performance where they
That's what it was. Yeah.
where they do the he kind of does a snippet of the bass solo into For Whom the Bell Tolls, but as soon as they kick into For Whom the Bell Tolls, he's even kind of riffing and jamming on that, and the second little go through where he just he almost plays it like an electric guitar lead. You're just like, it just doesn't make any sense, like how people do that with bass.
Dude, there's like, I know, like there's one, like, dude, I've worshipped this video growing up, but like there's one bend that he does on his bass, like 4 counts right before Lars counts into the actual song. And it's like, dude, he bends his G string like all the way up to the A. Like, dude, it's insane. But yeah, dude. And he's always headbanging. That's what I loved about him too. It was like, no matter what, he just doesn't stop headbanging, which I think is so rad.
Some of the fun stuff in the interview we get into with Connie is she talks about how even at that time he didn't want the money, he didn't want the fame, he didn't want everything that came along with it. He just wanted to be a musician. And even at the time of his death, I think his bank account was in his mother's name. And if he needed money, he would just have her wire him money. And he's, even before they went on the fatal tour where he, got passed away, he was still driving a shitty car, and he, missed a flight because his car broke down on the, just so many things that just make him a real legend, real and a legend at the same time.
Cause it's like, dude, especially nowadays, I mean, like anyone who's in, even at whatever age, but, with the majority of the people that are getting big and famous or successful at the age of 24, especially in the music industry, it's like, dude, there's no one like that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's worried about their appearance or what they're driving or how their social media looks and stuff like that. And like, I don't know. I feel like even if he was around today or getting famous today, like it wouldn't be the same thing. It's like, there are those people that are, very rarely come around that are just stick out from all the others and that just don't give a shit about any of the bullshit going on. And he was for sure one of those people.
Right.
From what I could gather,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think from, there are two people that, if they were alive today, they would have completely different lives on social media. One being Dimebag Darrell. I think Dimebag would rule social media with his videos and clips and probably his, quirky posts on, could you imagine Dimebag Darrell tweeting,
Dude, I think that would be legendary.
And then you've got Cliff, who probably would never own a smartphone,
Yeah, exactly. He's rocking a burner 24/7.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with Cliff, you have to call like his sister, and maybe she'll get the message to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, kind of getting into the even more into the interview and just kind of learning more about Cliff. It's just the one thing that they were saying when he was in the band Trauma. She talks about how the guitar player in Trauma at the time would always get mad at him for playing too much, and how he had to kind of go to Metallica to find his way. He just had such music about him that was even to this day I'll listen to Master of Puppets and I'll still find stuff in there. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe that's Cliff. I always thought that was James or Kirk, stuff like that. Yeah,
dude, he like mastered a bass tone that I to this day will always be trying to achieve. Man, and the way he would do like certain runs, like he would make them super bluesy, but he wouldn't also he was very subtle about how he would rip. You know what I mean? Like he was a ripper when like live shows and they wanted him to do like a live solo into For Whom the Bell Tolls or something. But like other than that, like he was never like over the top as like Anesthesia, obviously. But like other than that, he was doing like these little subtle runs, like he was catering the song, not just his own playing. You know what I mean? Which I think really to me makes a shredder good. Is like being able to cater to the song rather than your ego. And like his bass playing was just like the epitome of that to me. You know what I mean? Like instead of just trying to show off and rip all the time, he would be like, oh, there's a little gap in this bridge. This is where I'll do a cool bass run. You know what I mean?
With Metallica to this day, I went and saw them, what was it, last summer or the year before, on the latest Hardwired tour, and even they still have photos of Cliff up. They definitely don't they don't bury any of the history of the band.
100%. Yeah, I saw them. We did Rock on the Range with them a few years ago, and it was the same thing. But that was one of the craziest things. Is there was a rain delay in the stadium, and watching people sitting out in 2.5 hours of a rain delay in their ponchos or whatever, just waiting for Metallica. Like I was spoiled. I was in the artist tent that had like an open bar and like I was covered. I was spoiled. But like just watching that many diehard fans, man, it's like, damn, I want to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty intense, man. I don't think there'll ever be a band as big as Metallica, and even the bands that could be I think with social media and just everything coming along with all of that, you've got so much negativity out there to where I don't think that a band has enough time to breathe and become what they will become, because how many bands' third album is their pinnacle album, and then you have to think about how many bands don't make it to their third album. You know?
Exactly. And then make it to their, 10th album.
Right.
It's still relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, you see a lot of bands grow to the second album and then they peter out and they fight. Bands they fight about everything, and, they fight over the dumbest stuff, and they'll quit and whole new lineup change and all this other nonsense, over nothing. And then, and then they break up before that pinnacle third album.
Yeah. Where it's like Metallica, obviously the only reason they've had member changes is because unfortunately they lost Cliff. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, lost Cliff or Jason decides to leave.
Oh, well, yeah, true. Dave. Whoops.
Well, yeah. We don't talk about pre-Kill 'Em All Metallica, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A funny stat is Rob has now been in the band longer than Jason was in the band.
Really?
Yeah. Because he joined
when, like early 2000s, right?
Yeah, like 2003. So it's been like 17 years now.
That's crazy, dude. Because he's still, to me, I just think of like what's the DVD? Was it the Saint Anger DVD? When he
Some Kind of Monster.
Some Kind of Monster, yeah. I just still think, because like that's what I grew up on, so like that's the last, how I picture Robert being in the band. So I still think of that as like not that long ago, because that's like how I associate it with. But now that you say that, yeah, that makes sense.
Watching Some Kind of Monster, if you watch the bass auditions and you're like, all right, Pepper and whoever else, and the guy from Gene's Addiction and Twiggy and all this other stuff, and then Rob comes in and you're like, oh yeah, Rob got it. There's just like no denying that he's going to be the bass player.
Yeah, dude, that guy is an absolute animal, and I have no idea how he can play bass that well.
Well, Jake, man, I do appreciate you taking the time tonight, doing a little intro to the Connie Burton episode, man. And what's on the horizon for Them Evils, and will we be seeing you guys through the festival circuit next year, even if you're not playing?
Well, so right now we, like I said, we just dropped a single called "We're Gonna Crash Tonight." You can pick it up on like Spotify, Apple Music, MySpace, whatever you're into, Pornhub.
Right.
But no, man, I mean, we're supposed to go back out on tour. The Pretty Reckless tour we were scheduled for got rescheduled till September. And then we're supposed to be doing this festival called Rebel Rock Festival in Florida in September. But honestly, I don't think any of that's going to be happening. But so, yeah, man, I mean, all we can hope for is just next year, 2021, come back hard, hit all the festivals. We definitely will be dropping another new single within the next few weeks. We're in the mastering process of all that and just getting all the release stuff finalized. But definitely stay in touch with us at like themevils.com, Instagram, Facebook, Them Evils, all that. And we'll be dropping some tunes soon, baby. Connie Burton, the older sister of the major rager and the four-string motherfucker himself, Cliff Burton. Connie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing so well. So honored to get to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to talk with you, too.
Well, I grew up listening to Cliff when I was like 11 years old. Cliff was one of the reasons I picked up a bass. I ended up touring the country many years later, and I kind of contributed all the way back to getting into your brother. So I have to thank the family for that.
Oh, yeah, that's very cool. Since you were 11 years old, huh?
Well, I started playing at 11 and I started touring at 18, but yeah, it was based in Cliff Burton land.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right, well, we will kind of dive into it, Connie. I know you're his older sister. I think you're, about 4 years older than he was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then...
I was the oldest, Cliff was the youngest, and Scott was in the middle. He was 2 years younger than me and 2 years older than Cliff.
Okay. And then at what age do you think did you guys notice that Cliff was musical?
That he was musical?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you. I will tell you this.
Okay.
He was headbanging when he was a baby.
Right.
All right, but a baby can't go like back and forth. Forward and backward, right? Like Cliff would bang, right?
Okay.
So he swung back and forth, side to side. He'd rock back and forth, side to side, right? And my mom and I used to say, what do you think he's going to be when he grows up, right? And I was like a parachuter because they go side to side on the way, right?
Yeah.
My mom's like, maybe a swimmer, because they have to keep turning their head side to side, right? Well, we could never figure it out. What was he going to do when he was older, right? But we knew it had something to do with it. And it turned out to be his spontaneous response to the music, right? Physically, and that was headbanging. And he was doing it since he was a baby. So when we first noticed he was musical, I don't know, he was probably around 8 years old, 9 years old. And we had a piano, and he loved the piano, but he really didn't get into playing music and such like that until my brother Scott died.
Okay.
And that's when he picked up the guitar and started with that, and then graduated, went to the bass.
Now, how was he as a brother? Was he the annoying younger brother? Was he a friend of yours? How was your sibling relationship?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was rough going at first because I was 4 years old, right, when Cliff was born. And they gave him my bedroom. And so I had to share a bedroom with my brother Scott all of a sudden, right? And no one explained it to me. Like, this is a new baby. They have to have their own space, yada, 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 right? They were just like, okay, you're moving out, you're moving in with your brother, and the new baby's taking your room, right? So that really didn't go over well with me for a long time. And then I finally got over that, and Cliff and I became very, very close. He was always the mediator in the family. My dad and I would get into it at the dinner table or what have you, and Cliff would be the one to, he always called me Con. And he'd say, Con, come in the living room, let me talk to you, right? And he'd say, we'd go in the living room and he'd look down at me and he'd say, just shut up, just effing shut up, Connie, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no way is he going to talk to me like that, yada, 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 right? And I wasn't going to shut up, and neither was my father. So, he was like always the mediator like that. And he was a great brother. He was like my protector, and there was many times that he stood up and protected me. He was there for me when I needed him, and he always had good advice for me. Not that I always took it with my hard-headedness, but he always included me until he got to be with Metallica, and then he'd had enough of his big sister with trauma.
Yeah.
Because I went with the vocalist Donnie Hillier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always there at the practices and stuff like that, right? And Cliff couldn't shake his big sister, you know what I mean? Poor guy. And then so finally when he went to Metallica, he was like, okay, Con, please don't go out with any of the guys in my band. And I don't want you to go to practice with me anymore. I'm like, but Cliff, right? But it was time for him to grow up and grow into his music alone without his big sister hanging around, right?
Right. Well, I think he was wasn't he the oldest in Metallica? So that would have put the age gap with you and the Metallica guys at a couple, even further. So
yes, exactly. Yeah.
So
definitely.
I could be wrong on this, but I think at some time I read it, but I do believe, he got into a lot of the heavier stuff, the hard rock and the southern rock, classic rock type stuff through your record collection. Is that true?
Through his record collection?
Like through your stuff, through you having some stuff around the house.
Yeah, and my mother and my father too. He was very much influenced by music from a very early age. My dad was into swing and jazz and the big band era and classical music, and my mom was into classical music and the country western and a lot of that. But he grew up with a variety of different musics, around him. So none of us had any idea, though, when he picked up that guitar and said, I'm going to be the best musician I can be for my brother. None of us really had any idea what that actually meant. You know what I'm saying? We found out, but we had no idea at the moment when he said it that where he would go with it.
Yeah, he definitely fulfilled that wish to his brother. So
yeah,
yeah. His early bands what were some of the stuff he was doing before Trauma? Was he playing, cover bands, things like that around the, around the area?
He was doing he was doing like Easy Street and then Battle of the Bands, and they do, and then they had Fry By Night and, was it Fry By Night? Yeah. And, a couple of other bands that he was in. And, they did a lot of cover tunes and stuff like that. They had a few originals, but mostly cover tunes.
Is that stuff with Mike Borden? Is that Mike Borden around at this time?
Well, no. Well, early on, yeah, Mike was through part of it, and then Mike bailed out, and then Mike came back in.
Okay.
So in the early days, and he kind of traded off him and Jim Martin, kind of traded off or something. I don't know what they were doing, some kind of musical dance there.
It's so crazy to think about all of the talent that was just running through the Burton household. You got Mike there going on to play with Faith No More, and even Ozzy and Black Sabbath, just all this stuff. And then, obviously Cliff and Jim Martin. It's just, that whole San Francisco Bay Area was an insane area to live in, I guess, at the time. It
was absolutely insane. It was so great, though. It was just like an explosion of metal. And, I remember back to where I was calling up trying to get radio stations to play Metallica, right?
Okay.
And they had a CD out and everything like that, Jump in the Fire, right? Or Creeping Death, whatever it was, but nobody would play it. I went from all the way the entire Bay Area and all the way to San Jose and for Santa Cruz, right? Nobody would play Metallica on the radio. I couldn't get one station to play them.
No.
And then they became global.
Yeah, they did. The at that time, were you into the heavier stuff too? When all of the Exoduses and Metallica and stuff starts coming around, were you into that, or were you kind of more into the No,
I was totally in the scene. I was totally into the scene. As a matter of fact, we had caught on to this mosh pit. Right?
Okay.
Kind of thing?
Yeah.
But this was back in the early 80s, right? And it's when punks showed up in San Francisco from England, right? And they'd go to the gigs down there. They'd have gigs with punk bands and stuff like that down on Broadway. And so we caught on to this kind of it was kind of like a mosh pit, but it wasn't, right? And so one night when Metallica was playing at the Stone in San Francisco, my girlfriend, which was Cliff's girlfriend for many, many years, her name's Audrey. Audrey, hi Audrey. Anyway, Audrey Kimball, we started just like dancing around in a circle, right? And we had a rhythm though that we were dancing to. There was a rhyme and a reason to it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then somebody accidentally hit somebody else in the face, right?
Right.
Okay. So then that started the whole thing off, right? And back then we wore spikes, with leather bands with spikes on them and stuff like that. And I was all into it, definitely. And into the metal scene.
There you go.
It was great, though, just to watch metal explode into the arena, of music. It was really awesome.
So when
I'm still a metal fan. Five Finger Death Punch, all the way live. Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh, well, Chris Cale will love to hear that because Chris is another Cliff disciple, so there we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to let him know that. When Cliff joins Trauma, starts Trauma, and you're dating the singer, when all that kind of comes together, do you remember the gig that when they go down to L.A. and supposedly Lars and James are there and to check Cliff out? Do you remember kind of that time period?
Oh yeah, definitely, most definitely. That was a very strenuous time for Cliff because he had come to a point with his music that he had expanded, I'll put it that way, to such a degree that, like the lead guitarist was saying, Cliff, you're playing my part, you know?
Right.
And Cliff would be like, no, I'm not. I'm just adding to it, man. I'm just, elaborating on it, right? And it makes it better that way. And dude was like, no, no, right?
Right.
You're playing my parts. And so Cliff was very frustrated. He got very frustrated. And at that point in time. And so it was all worked out just perfect that that Lars and James came along and saw him, and said, hey, Lars said, this is going to be our next bass player, right? And sure enough, he was. But he needed room to expand and to breathe and to do his thing, And Metallica gave him that space and place.
Now, I know this might be a tough question for you to answer just because you were, involved with the singer of Trauma, but when you heard Metallica, did you realize that he needed to go to Metallica, or were you hoping that Trauma would stay together and, continue on? What were you, I'm sure you had to be torn.
He needed to move on. He was being stifled, and that's not good. That's not healthy. And so it was best that he move on to a place where he could expand his horizons in the music world, as a musician.
Now, I get why they moved to San Francisco, and obviously the story is because of Cliff. Cliff's like, hey, if you want me to join, you got to move here, and obviously the scene was better.
Right.
Which, in hindsight, man, you got to think that's for two or three guys to just get up and move their entire life for your brother has got to be very 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 cool for you. Yeah,
it is. It's quite an honor, that it shows the caliber of musicians that James and Kirk, Lars, and Kirk too, are in the fact that Lars knew when he heard Cliff Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
James knew when he heard Cliff, okay, we want this guy here, right? And we want him now. And they were willing to do whatever it took to get him.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have a good eye and a good ear because, like we said earlier, everybody goes back to those first 3 albums and, the bass playing on that alone just, Cliff probably sold more basses than most people alive.
Yeah, right.
When you start going to see Metallica with Cliff in the band, what were you seeing at the time? Did you feel like it was going to be huge, or did you think it was just going to be a big local thing? What were you thinking?
I really didn't have a scope on how huge that they were going to be until the night that they played at the Cow Palace. And they opened for Ozzy, right?
Right.
And that night, I realized that they just hit the big time there. You know what I mean?
So that's a few albums in. Is that on the Master of Puppets tour when you thought that?
Yeah, that was on the Master of Puppets tour.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Because...
Yep. But it didn't really click for me because I was just like, for me, I'm not a fan. Do you know what I mean? My perspective on everything was like totally different as being his sister.
Right.
And so I was just saying, this is cool. You know what I mean? I was along for the ride, right? And to support him and encourage him and be there for him when I could. I was, battling my addiction at the same time. So sometimes I wasn't there when I wish I could have been or would have been. But that's, all's forgiven. I forgot what I was saying.
You were just talking about them kind of, when you knew that they were about to hit the big time.
Yeah, when I saw them, and when I saw them on that stage that night, in particular, I just knew that this was just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It was the beginning of the end for Cliff.
Yeah.
But for Metallica itself, it was the beginning.
Yeah, that was the last tour that they were ever the opener. And
right,
that was,
exactly.
86 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of going back to the Kill 'Em All era, when they get signed and they go out to New York, they record, what are you doing at that time? And I guess we knew that you didn't think that you didn't know that they were about to make it big until 86, but that when they're going to New York and all that stuff, how were you feeling for Cliff?
Well, that was really cool because a lot of times I'd stay in Cliff's room and
you got your room
when
back.
He was gone. Yeah, I was the child that was never leaving, right?
Yeah.
And so Cliff would say, I'd ask him, "Can I sleep in your room while you're gone?" Right? And while you're on tour, and he's like, "Yeah, just don't touch my favorite lamp," right?
Okay.
And we had gotten past the point of me breaking his mentor's records, but that's another story altogether. But anyway, it was just a fantastical ride, to be able to go to all the gigs and party and I did party it up. I at one point when they put out the Kill 'Em All album, they were playing in San Francisco at the Kabuki, I think it was, and I showed up. And I was clean and sober. I hadn't had a drink or anything, or drug or what have you. And Cliff could tell. And he did not. I never had seen him cry before. Even when my brother Scott died, I didn't see him cry. He didn't cry in front of anyone, And he started crying, and he just hugged me, and he whispered in my ear, "Thank you, I love you, Con," right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had gotten to the point, though, with me being backstage that he just felt really uncomfortable because I was such a blow-up case with a big mouth.
Yeah.
And there's, people back there to do interviews with them and MTV showing up, you know what I mean, and all this, right? And I'm the, out-of-hand drunk back there. And so it just it was a really special evening that evening that I will never forget, that's for sure,
Oh, yeah, that's definitely, got to be high up on the memory chart for that, especially that time period.
Yeah.
And, I've discussed this many times with many people of, like, how quick their rise was. 83 Kill 'Em All, 84 Ride the Lightning, 86 Master Puppets, being, like, back to back to back. Bands definitely don't do that now. And, to have... Still, people talk about, the last great Metallica album is Master of Puppets, and there's just so much tied into those first three records. And, from your perspective, what were you seeing, seeing him leaving on tour? Was he good about calling home, things like that? It definitely wasn't as easy.
He was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he was really good about that. He'd call, it got to be... the calls got to be further and further apart because he was so busy. And he was either sleeping or eating or playing,
Right.
And or on the bus. And but he was really good about calling home. And he called home one time from Germany. He called from Germany, and he said, "Con, you gotta come over here right now, right?" And I'm like, "What's going on?" And he says, "The beer over here, man, you wouldn't believe it, right?" I've only had 2 beers and I'm plastered already, right? You've got to come drink this beer, right? And so anyways, he was really good about it, though. He'd call my mom, and he'd call and talk to the family regularly, when he could.
How did he handle the money and the fame? He seems to be pretty reserved. So, how was he handling all of that?
He wasn't. That's why I definitely believe. Well, it's not just why, but that's one of the reasons. I'm very spiritual. I'm a Jesus freak. What would Jesus do, right?
Okay.
And a firm believer in God, and I don't believe it was any accident when he died, but he would not accept fame and fortune as a part of the package deal that goes along with being the best musician you can be. And Cliff did not want any part, my brother did not want any part of being with the fame and the fortune. Not that he didn't love his fans and all that, right?
Yeah.
Because he did, very much. And he cared in his spirit. But the fame and the fortune, he didn't know how much money he had. He didn't want to know how much money he had. His bank account was in my mother's name. I mean, he would call and say, "Mom, I need some money," right? And so she'd wire him money wherever he was, right?
Wow.
And he was still driving his beat-up old Volkswagen, right? And I'm like, "Cliff, why don't you just buy a new car? I mean, if you don't want to go shopping, you can just, look on, call them up and tell them what to deliver and what color do you want. You know what I mean?" Mm-hmm. Right? It's as simple as that. And he was like, "No, this one works fine, right? This one works fine." And I'm like, "No, it's not working fine, right? You're missing rehearsals and, all the rest, right?" Missed the group rate to France because Cliff wasn't on the plane because his car broke down on the way to the airport.
Wow.
And, but my brother had a very special disdain, I'll call it, towards fame and fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wouldn't accept it. I told him one time when we were talking about it, and I said, Cliff, don't you understand that to be the best musician that you can be includes fame and fortune? I mean, it's a package deal. You can't separate it out, you know? And he was just like, shook his head, no. I'm not doing it. So I think that when they hit the Master of Puppets tour, that the fame and fortune had gotten to its own height that was enough of a level for Cliff to go, I'm out of here on the Ace of Spades. I'm out of here. You guys can have it. I'll go make music for the angels or heaven or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's you're looking at the, you watch videos of him throughout the years playing, and, really, I think he only had the two basses. He had the Rickenbacker early and then the Araya Pro later, but it's not like he had an arsenal of basses and all these even like some of the amps. If you pay attention to the amps in the background, I mean, they're kind of old and beat up too. So yeah, you can definitely tell he didn't, spin in the excesses for even just for his gear,
You're right.
So throughout the years, did you ever travel to go see them anywhere, or did you just kind of stay in the San Francisco area to go see them?
No, I stayed in the Bay Area, and I didn't travel on the road with them or anything like that. I'd go to the gigs that were all in the Bay Area and in San Francisco and what have you there, and San Jose or wherever they were playing, Palo Alto, different places like that. But I never traveled on the road with them.
What were your thoughts of Kill 'Em All when it came out, and Ride the Lightning when it came out, when you first heard it?
Well, I was thrilled that finally somebody had made some metal music. Because I had been attempting to learn guitar. Cliff was teaching me guitar when he did die, actually. I used to play on his knee, and he would play it on the guitar, what I was playing on his knee, plus what was in my head. And it was a very, very spiritual connection, And he got to the point where he said, well, Connie, look, I don't have time to do this anymore. You're going to have to learn how to play by yourself, And I'll teach you how to play guitar. So he was teaching me how to play guitar, and then he died, and it wasn't until I put down the guitar and did not pick it up again, and I've never picked it up again. But in 1998, I ended up in the same rehab as Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay.
And he made me an offer that you would think a person couldn't refuse, right? But what would Connie do? She did. But he kept walking around for like 4 days saying, Connie, you need to play guitar. You need to play guitar. You need to play guitar, right? And I said, Ozzy, what about the fact that my teacher died? Do you not understand? I said, just shut the F up, right? And he said, look, you play, I'll pay. And I want Ozzy to know that I'm ready to him off offer now. 30 some odd years later, right?
Right. So when you're in rehab with Ozzy, does it come out that you're Cliff's sister? And then did he have any?
Yeah, definitely.
And then what was his? What did he have to say about Cliff?
What? Wait, what was the question again?
What did Ozzy have to say about Cliff?
Well, Ozzy and I not really ever talked about Cliff.
Okay.
That I can remember. We just talked about things that were going on for us at the time, We were in rehab, down and out, hitting bottom. And yeah, we didn't talk about much about that, about Cliff. I was still working out his death, And Ozzy was still working out Randy Rhoads' death. at that point in time. So it was just not a subject that either one of us brought up.
My bad. Where were you when you found out that Cliff had passed? I know a lot of people talk about that it took a long time for the information to get, from overseas back home, things like that. So how long did it take for you to find out that the accident had happened?
Oh, no, we found out within a couple of hours of it happening, but it was, had partied all night long, Audrey and I, and we were at the bowling alley with a couple of friends of ours, and it was like 9:00 in the morning, and about 10 after 9 to be exact, because I looked at my watch, and I was ready to bowl, and I was on the lane, and I hadn't let go of the ball yet, right? And all of a sudden it just came to me, you have to go call your mother. You have to go call home. And so I stopped, and I went back and I put the ball down, and I said, I gotta go call my mom. I gotta go call home. And they said, well, Connie, it's your shot. Just take your shot because you're going to hold up the whole game. And I said, well, I don't care if I hold up the whole game. I got to go call my mom. So I went to the phone and I called her, and she answered the phone. And I said, it's Cliff, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, he's dead, right? And she said, yeah. And she says, I think you better come home right now. And I said, okay, I'll be right there. And I went back in and brought Audrey outside of the bowling alley and told her. And we went to the house. So, and then we had to wait, though, for 2 weeks until his body came back. So that was kind of, that was very difficult.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. And how was it for you with the, with them? I mean, obviously, they're still one of the biggest metal bands of all time, if not one of the biggest bands, period, of all time. But, within that, 86 to 92, that whole time frame, they blew up to be the biggest thing. So, I mean, it almost had to be a constant reminder that your brother had passed. How did you handle all that?
Well, I'll tell you how I handled it. I went back into my addiction and drugs and alcohol, and I handled it all just perfect. Okay, as an addict would. And I ended up in 1998 just blowing up my life completely on drugs and alcohol, and divorce and lost custody of my child, and the house and the car and everything, the money, everything. I literally blew up my life on drugs and alcohol, but during those times, I wanted to mention something on this interview. This is completely off the subject right now.
Okay.
But my brother, I listened to for many, many, many years in his bedroom, creating music, composing, right? Mm-hmm. And the classical music of Bach that he listened to and how he turned it into rock, okay? Which Geddy Lee from Rush even came and met Cliff when they were in New York. And Cliff did call home that time. He was so excited, and he was usually not excited like that, right?
Okay. And
he was just really down to earth, and he was like, because Geddy Lee, he played to Geddy Lee for years, right? So he was really excited. And he said, they said that Geddy Lee wants to come and meet me, right? The guy who finally broke the mold, who did it, right? Because he's been trying for so many years. And he was so excited about that. And I just wanted to mention that, my brother did take that classical music and turn Bach into rock. Okay. he's the only person that's done that, and I think that that's something that he is to be honored for and given tribute, to accomplishing, taking classical music and bringing it into heavy metal. You know?
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. There's still stuff that, like I said, I was listening to Master of Puppets earlier today, and I've listened to that album a million times, and I still hear, things that he's doing that I'm just like, wow, I can't, he was so young to even comprehend all of that, and not only comprehend it, but also turn it into heavy metal. So it's pretty insane. So it's insane to think that he was only 24 when he passed.
Yeah. It is. It was time though. The fame and fortune thing was just too much. He wouldn't accept it. In his spirit, he wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Way down deep inside.
Yeah.
He rejected that aspect of being the best musician he could be, and it just doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? And after all, he did pick the ace of spades to pick his own deathbed, literally. That's an insane story. I don't think any of it was an accident. I think it was all planned out. It's just God's plan for us,
Yeah, and, I think a lot of people say that Metallica died that night, and, the things that they went on to do, obviously, they became the biggest band ever, but they lost that spirit and that the soul of the band, when he passed. Obviously, Injustice for All, amazing album, the Black Album, amazing, Load, Reload, you keep going, and they're all classic records, but they don't have that, that essence of Cliff Burton on there.
No, they don't. Their music did change. And you can hear on the what's the one after Cliff died? The Black Album.
Injustice for All. Yeah.
Eyes on.
Yeah, Injustice for All.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can hear Cliff's resonating, tone still lingering with Metallica in the album. But you can definitely hear Cliff's not there,
Since Cliff has passed and, your dad took over that role of kind of the curator of the estate of Cliff Burton, and kind of, making the appearances, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is amazing, and, the 30th anniversary shows, and just the fans loved your dad too, and I know you guys had a rough patch, but I do believe you guys patched it up before your dad passed away. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did at Cliff's birthday in 2019, and we didn't talk after that, and it was just that one day, but it was a very special day to me. It gave me closure to when my dad did die, and I'm not going to comment any further on my dad's death.
No,
because
you don't have to.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
And it's very personal, so I'll just keep it to myself for the moment.
Right. With I guess the question in there is, who's kind of taken over that role of controlling the estate of Cliff Burton, because I know Ray donated.
Well, that's what I wasn't going to talk about.
Okay, cool.
I don't have control. My dad left me out of the will.
Ooh.
And my dad had considerable bitterness and hatred towards me. He was a nice guy to the rest of the world, but if you were Connie Burton, it was a whole different story. Okay, let's put it that way.
All right, we'll kind of get on to some.
Yeah.
We'll just move on to some happier stuff. But I mean, the one thing that the band has done the entire time has honored Cliff, with the Cliff Mall VHSs all the way up to even on the last tour, there was images of Cliff, come down, when they're playing the classic songs and things like that. They've continued to keep the memory alive of your brother. Oh,
yeah. And it's great to see fans out there with with big old flags and stuff. We remember Cliff, and I love Cliff, right? And I love seeing that on the videos on on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, I think Metallica has done very well for themselves, very well. I'm very proud of them since I've known them since they were, you know, just starting out, and things were different back then. But I'm very proud of them for their accomplishment in the music industry, and they've come far. They've come far.
They have. And the one thing I noticed that you do with your Facebook is, you know, you're always tagged in Cliff photos, and you continue to share Cliff stuff. And even when I share a photo of Cliff, you know, the comments just blow up. You know, it's crazy that, you know, it's 2020 and there are kids that are, you know, just now picking up a bass, going, man, this Cliff Burton guy is a thing, man. So it's got to be good for you to kind of just continue to keep the memory of Cliff going too.
Yes, it is. It's awesome to do that, and I will say that about the Facebook. The Cliff Burton family page is not me. I am not any part of it. They are not my family, my step family.
Okay.
But I'm not included in any of the Cliff Burton estate business or anything to do with my brother. So what I do is on my own at this point in time right now, and what I can do anyway. And I just want people to know that, so that they're not sending stuff to the Cliff Burton family page where, you know, I'm over here at Connie Burton.
Well, I know you've talked about doing a book. Are you still thinking about doing that?
I'm still doing it. I haven't been writing lately because I switched over I write lyrics also.
Okay.
And I switched over to some lyrics that were coming my way. And when they come, you write them, you know? And so I've been doing that lately, but I still have full intentions on doing the book. And I have no idea when.
Right.
Things have gotten so busy and so much going on that it's kind of on the back burner at the moment.
Now, with a book like that, I mean, do you have to go through channels to even get that out? Are you worried about anything?
I would have to ask my stepsister, who doesn't talk to me, who's the one that's in control of the Cliff Burton estate at this moment. And so until things change, I really don't know how that would work.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be tough. Family stuff like that, and I don't even want to get into that, but yeah. Yeah,
definitely. We want to stop there.
Absolutely. You know, well, just kind of going through the classic Metallica records, you know, what's some of the stuff that jumps out to you? Well, you know, what's your favorite Metallica song that Cliff was a part of? My
favorite Metallica song?
Yeah.
Is Orion.
No, absolutely.
And then my next favorite is Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. My next favorite is Creeping Death. I like everything that they did in the era when my brother was alive, right? Master of Puppets, just all of them, everything. Jump with the Fire, right? After he died, I like The Unforgiven, one.
Right.
Until It Sleeps. I can't think of any others right now.
When's the last time you saw them live?
Oh, I haven't seen or talked to, I haven't seen them since 1989. And I haven't talked to anybody besides Lars in 1998 when I was crashing and burning. He was there to help me.
Well, that's nice.
And I talked to him over the phone every week, and he would, made sure he kept in touch with me. And I was too far gone to say I need to go to rehab, so that was out, But other than that, I haven't. They have not spoken to me. I've been in exile for since 1998.
Oh wow.
Or 1989.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for me, it's the norm because I was in exile from my father, and it appears that the people that were on the inner circle that are loving my dad are not loving me.
right.
And don't speak to me. So, whatever that's all about, I don't know, but peace out. You know what I'm saying?
No, I feel you. It's definitely sad when families get torn apart over certain things.
Yes, it is. It's very sad. It's very sad. It's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a tragedy. But that's life, and we have to accept it and forgive, and just go on.
Yeah, I'll end it up with a couple of kind of more positive questions, but the one show online that I love to watch is the 86, I believe it is, Day on the Green in Oakland. Were you at that show at the Oakland Coliseum?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That was a great show. That was a great show. That was a great day.
Yeah, Cliff was on fire that day. Like, he just raging,
He was always on fire.
True.
He had a passion. He had a passion that not everybody has for playing, and that showed through his headbanging, which was an involuntary movement of his physical body,
Right.
But he was always on because he was always passionate about what he was doing and what he was playing, So he was there. He was present. He was on.
Well, as we wrap this one up, Connie, what's kind of one thing that you want to tell fans of your brother? So maybe something about him that we don't know.
Well, what I like to say is I praise God for this interview, and I praise God that I had a brothers, and a brother that was so amazing and influenced and continues to influence people all over the world to play musical instruments, and it's just awe-inspiring, and it's amazing. And I would say that one thing that my brother would say to all of the men and women out there that are playing the bass and or the guitar or what have you, and been inspired by Cliff, whether you're writing lyrics or what have you, is to never give up. To not give up. To remain humble and just continue forward. Do not give up. Stay committed and dedicated.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to end it, Connie. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Joshua.
Huge thank you to Connie Burton for taking the time tonight. That was hugely educational in the life of Cliff Burton. And let's say a huge thank you to Jake Masanari from Them Evils for taking some time, doing a little intro with me, talking some Cliff. You know, two bass players talking Cliff. That's how you start off an episode about Cliff Burton. So make sure to check out Them Evils whenever they come through your town. When and if they come through your town again. And go check them out, and always let the spirit of Cliff live on. And so for the Talk To Me podcast, I am Joshua Toomey, and I will talk to you guys soon.